What is and how do you get a mortgage on a home? I'm here to talk about it on episode 5 of Loft Talk. So what is a mortgage? A mortgage is as simple as a loan given to you by a bank or credit union. And this is a loan that is leveraged against the home. Meaning if you buy a $300,000 home with a 96.5% loan, it means basically you own $10,000 or whatever your down payment was of the home and the bank owns the rest. So if you were to sell it for $300,000 with no fees associated, you wouldn't walk away with $300,000, you would get your $10,000 back and that would be the end of it. But a mortgage is a typical 30-year loan amortized over that period, and the mortgage is simply a way for you to be able to afford a really expensive property at a minimum cost. And that mortgage can be given to you by a bank if you meet a couple requirements, and there's really 4. Number 1, credit score. You want to have at least a 620 or above. As of recently, Fannie Mae released that you can now average the credit scores of the 2 people on the loan. So if you and your hubby want to get a mortgage, one's a 610, one's a 630, that means it's going to average to a 620 and you'll be approved. You typically want to be above a 640 or even a 680 to get the best interest rate, but really the differences are so minimal these days, it really doesn't matter. If you qualify, you qualify. Now, how much you get approved for is all determined by your debt to income and your savings. So your debt to income is how much you have to pay per month to debtors versus how much you make from your revenue sources, like your job. So if you make $3,000 a month, they probably want to see that you're at the very least, getting a mortgage that's probably 3 times less than what you're bringing in. For example, if you make $3,000, rule of thumb, they'll give you a mortgage approval for about $1,000. That's because they want to have a gap. They don't want 2008, 2009, 2010 to happen again. And there's bills, things happen. They want to make sure you have comfort with your mortgage and you're not house poor. So your debt to income typically can be around 45% at max. It can flow with every single different kind of loan. For the most part though, have as little debt as possible. When it comes to student loans, car debt, phone debt, medical debt, all these different things, they're not looking at the big number. They're not looking at the $200,000 student loan. They're looking at the $120 payment you have to make every month. That's the math they care about. So if you're thinking you can't buy a house because you have $20,000 in student loans, think again, you can. They only worry about that monthly payment. For credit cards, student loans, personal loans, all the loans, they only worry about your monthly payment. Lastly, savings. Your savings come into effect as reserves. How many monthly payments could you make with your current savings? Now, they love to see you have at least 6 months of reserves. You do not have to have that, okay? You do not have to have that. You simply have to have enough for the closing costs and the down payment. Lowest down payment you can get with a USDA loan or a VA loan is 0, 100% financing. But the other one that's accessible to everybody is the FHA loan, which is 3.5% down, which on a $200,000 home, you're looking at about $7,000 that you would have to pay for a down payment. You also have closing costs, which can be negotiated with the seller, but in this market, typically you're not getting it, but you can still get that from the seller. And then there's one other small little factor, and that's employment. They want to see you've at least been in the same style of job for at least a year if you're getting paid every 2 weeks or at least consistently. And when I say same type of job, it means if you went from working at one construction site to another construction site, the bank looks at like basically one job. Like you sandwiched from one to the next. There was no delay, there was no jump, you didn't downgrade your pay, you probably upgraded your pay, that's why you switched. You know, as long as you're staying in the same field, they don't care. If you went from I was a nurse to now I work at Burger King, they're gonna be like, something happened here, we don't like that, that's sketchy, we can't trust you. So as long as you have a year, now if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an investor, if you're doing anything that involves like 1099s, independent contractor stuff, they want at least 2 years. So like heavy commissions, heavy bonuses, they want at least 2 years of income and they'll average what you made in those 2 years together. And that's the basics of getting a mortgage. And I would highly suggest getting that mortgage or at least getting pre-approved for that mortgage, which a pre-approval can stay good for up to 180 days, by the way. And it's a very, very, very minimal effect on your credit score. It's like 1 to 2 points because the government wants you to buy a home. That is how you get a mortgage. That's why you should get a mortgage. And we discussed on the last episode, which we'll put right here, that you should probably buy, not rent. So with this information of this episode and last, you've had all the loft talk you need to be convinced to buy a house. So that has been episode number 5 of Loft Talk.